Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U. Well, more accurately, a re-review, because I originally reviewed this game, but without footage. So now it's all shiny and HD, as the British people would say. So, in my original review, I thought that this was the worst 3D Mario game, and I ended up selling my disc right after I beat it, because I was just like, I am getting too sick and tired of all this boring, held-back level design that could have been so much better if Nintendo didn't cripple themselves. But I decided maybe I was a little bit harsh, and I should give it another try. No, I didn't beat the whole game again, but I'd like to say I played enough of the new post-game levels that I didn't even try before, and enough of the first couple of worlds to realize my opinions haven't really changed all that much at all. I don't feel myself filling with rage as much as I did back then, but I don't find myself more joyful either. Sure, I might go back and get some of the green stars just because I'm curious what some of the secret levels are, but that would be as a time waster, not as my preferred way to play 3D Mario. So let's talk about what makes this game unique, because one look at it and you might realize, Paul, this is basically Super Mario 3D Land in HD, and you're technically not wrong. But there are a few things that 3D World does to attempt to set itself apart. So for starters, it has a few new power-ups, the most prominent of which being the cat suit, which transforms your character into a cat. This actually changes up their mechanics quite a lot, such as allowing you to climb up walls, swipe at enemies with your claws, as well as do a lunging forward attack. I seem to be a lot better at doing this in this file than I was in my original game. However, I found that the cat suit, while it was cool, there weren't really too many levels that were designed where you needed it. See, what I really loved about games like Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Sunshine is that they were designed with the new gimmick in mind. In Mario Sunshine, all of the levels had a tropical island motif, and they would usually have pollution or fires that you would use your water pack to put out. Or you would have drawn-out platforming sections that would be easier to complete if you sprayed water at the ground to make Mario hover in the air. Or, in the case of, say, Super Mario Odyssey, you'd use Cappy to capture the enemies, or have Cappy be an additional platform. In these games, the power-ups definitely help you get through, but they're not absolutely required. You could probably beat the game without even having a power-up, and just beat it as a small character, and that wouldn't really be a huge deal, which in retrospect feels like a huge slap in the face to how amazing 3D Mario games were in the past. Another thing that Nintendo tried to do, which ended up epically failing by a lot of other YouTube standards, is that they tried to incorporate 4-player multiplayer for the first time in a full-fledged 3D Mario game that wasn't a spin-off. In theory, this works pretty well because it's a nice callback to Super Mario Bros. 2. The players can choose between Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad, and they basically perform almost exactly like they did in that game. Mario's the all-around character, Luigi jumps the highest but is the hardest to control. Peach is kind of ho-hum as far as her speed and her jump, but to make up for it she can glide through the air really briefly as though you have a permanent Tanuki leaf. Finally, Toad is the easiest to control and runs the fastest, but also has the worst jump. Now, this also seems like this would make for some really incredible level design, as you'd have to use the right character for the right moment. However, that is unfortunately not the case. There's not a single level that is designed with these unique abilities in mind. At the most, they'll occasionally have levels where there's a switch with a character's face on it, and you have to be the right character in order to hit the switch, but that's about it. The switches themselves don't require any of their special abilities to get to them. It would have been nice if maybe Peach could glide to an out-of-reach island that the other characters couldn't get to, or Toad had to run fast to catch up with something. As it stands, well, it's really just a matter of preference. Like, would you want to play the whole game as Princess Peach? You can, but there's not really an incentive to, besides just, why not? I mean, usually Bowser kidnaps Princess Peach. Now, she actually can storm into Bowser's castle. Although a nice little touch that I didn't notice when I first played the game is that when you choose Peach in a Bowser's castle level, she says, "About time!" Which felt like she was kind of getting annoyed at Bowser for all of his kidnapping shenanigans. There's also levels where you get to play as Captain Toad, and these are the true highlights of the game. When I first played this game, I thought that these were better than 3D World itself, and I still stand by that. You play as a version of Toad that cannot jump, and so therefore you have to move the camera around this diorama-style level, and you have to collect all of the green stars in a time limit. Also, you can only take up to 2 hits from the enemies. Thankfully, this was definitely expanded on, as I feel like there certainly weren't enough of them in the main game, as it eventually got its own game, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which itself got a port on the Switch and 3DS, and it also got DLC. Man, all that for a character that doesn't jump. What next? All that for a character that doesn't talk? Oh wait, that's Legend of Zelda. The other problem I forgot to mention with the multiplayer being added is that the Wii U can only support one gamepad at a time. So obviously Nintendo said, well, why don't we have multiple control methods? Again, this seems really cool. Any other game that would give you multiple ways to play, people would be praising. However, this is a brand new console 3D Mario game. Usually, the games are designed to take advantage of the controller and its enhancements. Super Mario 64 had the analog stick. Super Mario Sunshine had the smoother analog stick as well as a C stick instead of C buttons, allowing for more complex camera rotation, which allowed for more complex level design. Mario Galaxy may have had less buttons, but it had the motion sensing of the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. So you had galaxies centered around that. Well, how does this game take advantage of the Wii U gamepad, you might ask? Hardly at all. There are a few levels where you might have to tap certain parts of the screen, or you'd have to blow into the microphone, but these instances are few and far between and feel like they could easily have been worked around to use more traditional buttons. So in other words, it's possible to play a brand new game with a brand new touch-enabled motion-sensing controller with a standard Wii Remote held on its side. Does anyone see the problem here? Every time Super Mario 3D World has a cool new idea, it's held back by something in order to keep things fair for the new additions. You have cool new power-ups, but the game wants to make sure that if player 2 didn't get to the Super Bell in time, let's make sure they can beat the level too. Oh, player 2 doesn't have a second gamepad, but the Wii U can't support it anyway, so let's make sure they don't have full directional movement. Yeah, that's right. A 3D Mario game that doesn't allow for full analog control. What era was Nintendo living in back in 2013? I am so glad the Switch is out now. Man, this must have been a nightmare of a time for people to grow up in. Now, to Super Mario 3D World's credit, there are a few things that are really cool about this game. The graphics and music are absolutely astounding, with this having some of the best lighting, water, and fire effects on the Wii U, and the music is, for the most part, a big band style with occasional orchestra pieces thrown in there. Most of the music is live performed, and it sounds really nice most of the time, but every now and then they slip into some awful synthetics that just completely destroy the mood of the game. However, it does give you an incentive to want to keep playing the game even if you don't like it, because unlike Super Mario 3D Land that only had basic ground theme, underground theme, sky theme, this actually has unique music that differs mostly between most of the levels, which is really nice. However, another thing that I have to gripe about that I noticed a second time around is that Super Mario 3D World doesn't have the usual level of cohesion that makes 3D Mario games so amazing. See, Super Mario 64 introduced Peach's Castle, and you felt connected to the worlds because you would jump into a painting of the world and then transport into it, so you felt as though the levels were directly connected to the castle. In Super Mario Sunshine, they took this a step further by allowing you to see the levels in the distance when you were in Delfino Plaza. Sometimes you'd see a Delfino Plaza in the distance while you're in the levels, so you'd feel a sense of connectedness to all of Delfino Island. In Super Mario Galaxy, well, they were all really connected by the space motif, so they played around with gravity. In Super Mario 3D World, you walk around flat, boring 2D world maps and jump into a diorama that doesn't really feel like it has a rhyme or reason to be in that particular world, besides, oh, we're in the desert world, so there's going to be more sand. but overall the sense of disconnectedness may make for tighter platforming experiences if you prefer that more linear style of gameplay rather than the open world-esque sandbox style of Mario 64 and Mario Odyssey. But for those of us who like more exploration and looking around, this game is going to be a huge disappointment. The timer is a huge factor in why you don't want to actually explore all that much. Because even if you do want to find the green stars and the Miiverse stamps, guess what? You'll lose them if you run out of time. Why does this game have a timer? Is it just because Nintendo forgot that they're out of the arcade era and you're not asked to pay quarters to play this game? I mean, I get that it makes for a pretty cool level in the post-game, but that shouldn't have to hold back the rest of the game from allowing you to explore at your own pace. Super Mario Odyssey didn't have a timer. Mario 64 on the N64 didn't have a timer. So why does this game have to feel like for every step forward it takes, it has to take another step backwards? I feel like Super Mario 3D World is sort of the antithesis of proper sequel design. Usually when you make a new sequel, you try to improve upon the foundation of what came before it. This feels like in so many ways it could be a step forward, but in other ways it's a step backward. Even from 3D Land, which it's supposed to be the direct sequel to, that game was designed with the stereoscopic 3D and the handheld nature of the 3DS in mind. So therefore it had a lot of levels that dealt with height because of the stereoscopic 3D to help with depth perception. However, you don't get stereoscopic 3D on the Wii U, so the depth perception is actually even worse than it was in that game. And to add further insult to injury, I would say the depth perception is so bad that it's the worst I have ever seen in a 3D Mario platformer, especially because you can't control the camera during particularly odd jumping sections, therefore making this game more of a hassle than it has to be. Overall, I feel like 3D World is definitely one of the more distinct Wii U games in an era where you had, Paper Mario Color Splash, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam with such unoriginality that 3D World, in comparison to those, feels like a breath of fresh air. However, in many ways, it doesn't feel like it's enough of a step forward and feels more of like a play it safe approach. Like, well, let's innovate a little bit, but let's not get too carried away with our ideas. And since when has Nintendo ever held back on their own creativity? That being said, I feel like there's a certain niche audience that likes this more focused level design rather than just picking up oodles and odds of moons wherever you go. And I could see people liking the get to the end of the level. However, I could also see people wishing that maybe there was more mission variety. Like instead of just getting to the end of the flagpole, maybe they could do the Captain Toad route, where maybe some levels would have you wander around and try to collect collectibles. Or maybe you could rescue someone. I never thought I'd be saying this, but maybe even a Toad escort mission would be nice. But there's not even one. Overall, my feelings on Super Mario 3D World are still mixed, and in some cases I find the game even worse than I did when I first reviewed it. But in other cases, I can also see the admiration that people have for what this game did do right. And honestly, I'm not going to try to bash them for having an opinion, as this probably could have turned out so much worse. As a Wii U game, it's a massive disappointment. As a Mario game, it's serviceable, but nowhere near the level of being mind-blowing like pretty much any other 3D Mario was. So with that, I'm going to have to say rent it first, but then use caution if you feel like you're actually going to invest yourself into playing this game long term. Because if you find that the controls are too clunky, the level design is too lazy, and all of its cool ideas are underutilized, then you're probably not going to want to spend a whole lot of money. Then again, I found this on sale for $15 and feel like I got my money's worth considering how great the graphics and music are compared to the rest of the package. So if you find it on sale like I did, yeah, that's not going to kill you to pick up for $14. However, if you pay the full $60, no, totally not worth it. With that, thank you very much for watching. If you have opinions differing from my own, or if you'd like to critique this video in some way, please let me know in the comments section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and Nintendo, please design your next 3D Mario game to actually feel like a revolution, not a devolution. Bye!